engaging the community since 1970. This is WIS Awareness.
Good morning and thanks for joining us for Awareness today. I'm your host, Leland Pender. You may have heard of a community project called the Charleston Forum. It came together following the shooting at Mother Emanuel Church in 2015. Education, religious, political, and business leaders bringing the community together, looking for ways to bridge the racial divide. Organizers recently held their second big forum in Charleston. Take a look at this quick video produced by the organizers on what the forum is all about.
Where the American flag and the state flag of South Carolina were at half-staff, but the Confederate flag was at full staff while they were burying, an assassinated black state representative. That whole moment just really embodied everything that we have been talking about up to that moment when we say Black Lives Matter, right? And just the fact that so much focus in those days after the shooting was on the flag and not on the life that had been lost, not on asking ourselves this question of what were the conditions that led this young white man to go into a church and kill black people while they were praying.
Where do we go from here is a question I don't have the audacity to believe I know how to answer that question. I do know that we have two choices, and I think those two choices were laid out to us in an amazing fashion by Dr. King. And he said we either have chaos or community. I think that's the challenge for us. Everyone watching this video and everyone participating in this forum and people who are not able to do either but just want to be a part of the solution, understanding that we have two choices. Either we're going to build community or we're going to succumb to chaos.
A lot of the underlying issues that presented itself after Mother Emanuel, after Walter Scott, are still here. If you want widespread change, widespread conversation.
I know a lot of people who are interested in having a conversation about the world being a better place, but not having a conversation about how we got here. And until we talk about how we got here, I don't know how we move on from here.
Interesting. Miss Aaliyah.
I hope that we can seek to be more open to one another, that we can seek to understand each other, and I think that's where the basis of change comes from.
We still have a long way to go to not just have had a good feel-good time. We need to buckle down and remember that scripture from my faith tradition that says faith without works is dead. We need to do some work together.
The unique position Charleston has in the story of America that needs to be understood in a different way, in a different light, because something has gone wrong. In the deepest wells of our soul, too often, we find ourselves running to our own factions, unable to find clarity and truth.
We are a diverse people with different backgrounds, different experiences, and as a result of that, we will never all see the world the same way. Our challenge is learning how to respect that and how to meet those challenges.
All right, so this morning I'm joined by Bakari, a lawyer and CNN commentator, and Alana Simmons, who is a former teacher and the granddaughter of one of the victims of the Mother Emanuel shooting, the Reverend Simmons. And you also started the Hate Won't Win movement that we all have come to know. So this year's forum discussed education and the economy. That was the focus of this year, and we'll start with the education portion because that's what you guys were involved with. Tell us about the state of education in the classroom and how that affects the black population in Charleston and in South Carolina.
Well, I'll just take a first swipe at this. I think that when we saw the Confederate flag come down, that day was full of joy. So many people shed so many tears because we know what it took to get to this point. But the question is, now what? We still live in a state where teachers are underpaid, where kids go to school where their heating and air don't work, where their infrastructure is falling apart, where the quarter of shame has just become a fabric and an institution in our communities. And so At the forum, we were attempting to talk about solutions, and I think that not only were you very forward-thinking, but our entire panel was very forward-thinking about the solutions that we need, not just in the classroom, but from a policy perspective. South Carolina has been stuck in peanut butter for a long period of time when it comes to our public education system, and we continue to do the same thing over and over again. And it's a travesty because our children aren't prepared for a 21st century global economy.
So with what you do, Alana, with Hate Won't Win and being a former classroom teacher, you kind of see the education from two sides there. What solutions were you able to propose or come up with to this problem?
Well, I want to start with thanking everyone for putting together the Charleston Forum. As a family member of one of the victims, it was good, and it felt good to see that the people of Charleston were still taking this to heart, just like how our families are still dealing with the loss of our family members like every day. It's something that you can't really get away from, so to speak. And so to see that people are finding new and improved ways to honor our families is so comforting. Mother Emanuel was my introduction to South Carolina, so initially I wanted to be on the first thing smoking out of here. So there was Mother Emanuel, and then when we came to Columbia, there was the Confederate flag debate. So it was just really rough coming in, but being a former educator, I remember getting that call from my father. It was the last day of school that he told me that there was a shooting at Mother Emanuel, and just being here and, you know, starting the Hate Won't Win movement. One of our initiatives, and our first initiative that we launched, was our education initiative, because while I believe that faith is something that's really important to being able to prevent hate crimes from happening and racism and discrimination, education is a really big piece of it. And being in a state that doesn't value education fiscally as much as other states, it really does hurt as an educator to know how much educators put into their children and how we feel that our students are our children, and to not have that support from the community or not have that support from the legislation is just, I guess, discouraging.
In the forum, it came up that there are lower expectations across South Carolina for minority students, black students. Why is that, and how do you get away from it?
No, we live in a culture of low expectation, and so I went to public school in Orangeburg, South Carolina. You know, I grew up in Bamberg, Orangeburg, Barnwell, Allendale, Hampton, and there's just not a level of expectation that these kids can succeed. And so I pride myself on just being an example more than anything else, because I want young people throughout these communities and throughout particularly the 6th Congressional District, but, you know, throughout these poor rural communities, that, you know, you can make it out. And then you can come back and give. And I think that that's so important. And it's not that our teachers aren't doing their job. It's not that our instructors and superintendents aren't doing their job. It's that, as you were saying, the larger community, South Carolina as a whole, is not doing its job. And we've identified the problem. The reason the Charleston Forum is so important is because it stands in the gap, and we're able to talk about solutions on an amazing level. We were able to talk about not just pre-K and making sure that we were taking care of the kids in the cradle, but we were also talking about college affordability. And this, we had a provost from the Citadel talking about whether or not kids are prepared when they get to college. And so we're trying to complete the circle. And I think that viewers this morning, before they go to church, one of the things that they can do is change their demeanor. And every young person they see in the community, at church or at dinner afterwards, just first of all believe that kid can, and then become a part of that kid's proverbial village. All
right, so another part of this year's forum was the economy and how that impacts the black community in Charleston and South Carolina. We'll add a panelist to our group here after the break and go into that conversation.
Instead of going to school every morning, what if school could come to you? Because learning happens anywhere and everywhere. K-12 powered schools provide a tuition-free, full-time, online public school education taught by state-certified teachers.
It's public school at home.
K-12's curriculum is designed to engage students, to challenge them. So visit K12.com today. Tuition-free in South Carolina.
Call All Twos now. We got a $250,000 settlement for a client injured in a car accident when driver illegally turned in front of him.
Call All Twos now.
To get your attorney, dial All Twos now.
The skills you can develop as a soldier in the Army National Guard can give you an edge in the high-tech job market of tomorrow. The Guard offers paid training to take advantage of your interests in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Learn about all the STEM career opportunities at nationalguard.com.
Jeep Celebration Event at Alana Chrysler Jeep on Greystone. Over 900 vehicles to choose from. New Jeeps, 1/3 off. That's right, 33% off. Finally, a Jeep. New Jeep Renegade and Jeep Compass from $15,999. Jeep Compass, $99 per month. Yes, $99 per month. 2019 Jeep Cherokees, $199 per month. Yes, $199 per month. New Jeep Wranglers from $22,999. Jeep Celebration Event. New Jeeps, 1/3 off. At Alana Chrysler Jeep on Greystone. And 24/7 at GallianaSC.com.
Dominion Energy has a plan for South Carolina's energy future. The average SCE&G residential electric customer would get an immediate $1,000 cash payment.
That's a lot of groceries.
And 7% lower electric rates.
Who doesn't like saving money?
And Dominion Energy would pay off $1.7 billion of debt from the failed nuclear project.
That's money we won't have to pay. So let's get this done.
Dominion Energy, a better plan for South Carolina.
Earlier in the show, we heard D. Ray McKesson talk about understanding how we got here in order to move forward. So I found this interview from Dr. Martin Luther King back in 1967, and I think he articulates it very well how we got to this point. So take a listen.
That no other ethnic group has been a slave on American soil. That is one thing that other immigrant groups haven't had to face. The other thing is that the color became a stigma. American society made the Negro's color a stigma, and that can never be overlooked. So I think these things are absolutely necessary. The other thing is that America freed the slaves in 1863 through the Emancipation Proclamation of Abraham Lincoln, but gave the slaves no land or nothing in reality, and as a matter of fact, to get started on. At the same time, America was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that there was a willingness to give the white peasants from Europe an economic base. And yet it refused to give its black peasants from Africa, who came here involuntarily in chains and had worked free for 244 years, any kind of economic base. And I believe we ought to do all we can and seek to lift ourselves by our own bootstraps. But it's a cruel jest to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And many Negroes, by the thousands and millions, have been left bootless as a result of all of these years of oppression and as a result of a society that deliberately made his color a stigma and something worthless and degrading.
All right, so hearing Dr. King say those words, certainly we don't live exactly in those times anymore, but it does kind of echo today. A lot of what he's saying persist. So just recently, the city of Charleston apologized officially and publicly for their role in slavery and perpetuating that institution and that kind of society. How did that play in the conversation at the Charleston Forum? And Sue, I'll start with you because you are joining us now. You're the director of the SC Appleseed Legal Justice Center. What was the reaction like in the room when that came up?
Well, Mayor Tecklenburg announced the action that the city took, and there was definitely applause. But, as watching that clip, it's just making me think we're not talking any differently 41 years later than what Dr. King said in that clip. And well, that's a wonderful gesture, and it's important that the city of Charleston acknowledged it. It's at the same time, during the 40-year period, Charleston has become a very different city, and through gentrification and push-out, we see that many people cannot afford to live in the city. Many African Americans have been pushed out. The eviction rates are skyrocketing. The disparity in incomes are huge, so it's great to take that step and great for Charleston to do that apology. But now the work starts, the real work to close that gap, and that gap is a cavern right now.
So let's talk about that. A lot of what the forum was based upon and solutions presented was due to a report that came out from the College of Charleston called the 2000 to 2015 Racial Disparities Report, or something of that variation. And a lot of that is in the report. It shows how black people in Charleston are being forced out of downtown into outlying areas. They don't have access to transportation, therefore good jobs and things like that. Those findings, it's one thing to kind of know these things, but then to see it on paper, the hard words and hard numbers kind of really brings it home. So chime in on what that meant to the crowd.
The report, for me, it gives credence to a very poetic phrase that my mother would always say, we tried to tell y'all, right? We've been echoing these same sentiments for a very long period of time. You know, the three of us have awesome tasks and platforms, and we do it in various ways, but we try to give a voice to the voiceless and those who go unheard, who have been yelling this from the rafters for a long time. When you look at what we're talking about, there have been no other people in this country who have gone through 300, 400 years of bondage and another 100 years of oppression through state-sanctioned violence, etc., Jim Crow. And you talk about, people begin to talk about reparations, etc., but what I'm talking about is opportunity, right? I want people who look like me, not just in Charleston and Columbia, which are the most progressive cities in the state of South Carolina, and we still have yet a ways to go, but even those cities in between Charleston and Orangeburg, to make sure that they have an opportunity to go out and make not a minimum wage, but a living wage. Make sure their kids can go to school where they have iPads and they have Wall Street journals, and their teachers can make $50,000 a year or $60,000 a year while teaching them, making sure that those jobs that we find in the upstate are still right there in Allendale and Hampton and Bamberg. And so opportunity is what we're talking about. That's why this Charleston Forum was so important, because, all right, we tried to tell y'all that we were poor. We tried to tell y'all the state's been keeping us poor for a long time. Now how do we fix it?
Sue, you've gone to court over some of these issues in your work and what you do. So in the context of this conversation, what are some of those issues you've had to fight in court?
Well, I mean, some of the things that we've really looked at is, one, the debt that especially people of color are absorbing and holding on to. When you look at, because of the inequalities, we know that there's less health care available, there's less ability to access affordable credit. And one of the things that we're really looking at is people who are trying to just get even. And when you look at the debt ratio that communities of color are holding on to versus the white community, it's just remarkable. And then you pile onto that there's not a living wage. I mean, trying to, and Bakari, when he talks about a living wage, he tried to just get a minimum wage introduced while he was in the legislature, an increase of $1. And I remember being there to support it, and you would have thought, I think there was communism was thrown out
Socialism,
there.
communism. Yeah.
And everybody should be entitled to a living wage, because if you don't have a living wage, how are you going to address the idea of that you're holding on to so much debt? People are holding on to so much debt because they don't have enough money to pay their bills. And as long as all of that is going on, as well as not funding the schools and making those opportunities available, how do we expect to close that cavernous gap? Because we can't do that. And we have to get both policies, we have to make the laws change, and we have to enforce the laws that we already have to make sure that these changes continue to move forward.
So in the report, there were a lot of solutions presented at the very end of it. What's just like one that came up to that problem?
Well, I focused mainly on education, and one of the things that I saw that I really, one of the proposals that I saw was diversifying the teachers. We talk about making sure that the policies are in place and that we have good practices, but there is a disparity between the understanding of the culture of a black student as opposed to the culture of a white student, or the culture of a poor student as opposed to the culture of a rich student. And if you don't have teachers who are diversified, who understand that there's a difference and that you have to to respond differently to people who are coming from different places, then you are going to fail the children when it comes to educating them, when it comes to these ridiculous standardized testing and how we're just testing them, but we're not teaching them. And that was one thing that a big takeaway for me, because it really did ring home for me. I taught in a very diverse school. I taught in military schools. And so we had a diverse student population and we had a diverse teacher population, and we still had policies that needed to be changed to better serve our poor and black students. But being in Charleston and seeing that not only do they have that same demographic as far as the situation with the standardized tests, but they also have a huge disparity in their teacher demographic, it was just really alarming.
I saw that part of the study. It said largely younger white women are in high poverty schools teaching mostly black students. Yes. And it can be like a rite of passage or seen as that way to them. And, you know, for the students, they're not getting the kind of education they need and deserve.
For $20,000, though, which is all we're paying teachers, and I can speak for Bamberg, we'll pretty much take what we can get. So just come, please. Come one, come all.
Well, one of the things that I noticed in one of the schools that I taught at was that when we were going through the testing and we were seeing that poor black boy was at the bottom of every category, and we were trying to figure out, like similarly like what we're doing now, what can we do to help the poor black boy? I'm like, well, how about hire somebody that's black other than the custodian? And the only black male in the entire building was the custodian. And so we have to kind of look at those kinds of things to be like, okay, if we're going to help the students, they have to have representation just like in every other field.
Okay, more awareness coming up after the break.
Do you suffer from back pain? Try Dr. Ho's Back Belt, a back pain solution that is now covered by many insurance plans, even Medicare.
The belt allowed me to walk for the first time in a year without a cane.
Dr. Ho's Back Belt is a patented decompression back brace designed to relieve back pain. It expands to stretch tight muscles and traction your lower back, all while providing strong support. If you have back pain, Dr. Ho recommends you try his belt, even if you've suffered for many years.
Since I started using the belt, I felt almost instant relief. After about a half an hour of using the belt, the pain diminished a lot, and now it's all gone.
Doctors recommend back braces for chronic and acute back pain, degenerative discs, herniated or bulging discs, sciatica-related back pain, trouble sleeping due to back pain from sitting, driving, or lifting, and back pain from sports and exercise.
I think every patient with back pain should be wearing this belt.
Imagine finally getting relief for your back pain and being active again.
I've had back problems for the past 4 or 5 years. Nothing gave me instant relief except for the Dr. Ho belt. Before I couldn't really move, couldn't play with the kids, and now after using it, I'm young again.
So if you have back pain, have your Medicare card available and call us now. Our operators can check if you're eligible to receive your very own Dr. Ho's Back Belt at little or no out-of-pocket cost. Get back to living the life you love. You can wear Dr. Ho's Back Belt while walking, relaxing, driving, doing housework, lifting, playing sports, and even while sleeping. Just pump it up and feel the relief.
Really working. It's already beginning to relieve my back pain, and I can feel it really stretching the tight muscles in my back. And I can't believe how good it feels.
Call now. You deserve to get relief from your back pain. And if you're eligible, you may receive your own belt at little or no out-of-pocket cost to you. You'll get Dr. Ho's Back Belt, easy-to-use hand pump, and back rehabilitation DVD. This is a limited time offer.
Call now and get relief for your back. Back pain doesn't have to limit your life.
All right, welcome back this morning. More on that report that this whole forum was based on. A lot of it talked about, of course, education, economics, and I think education goes beyond the classroom, of course, and it's just more about understanding each other. For some reason, the term like whitewashing comes to mind right now. When you talk about South Carolina history and some of these problems, sometimes kids, even adults, aren't getting the full story.
Yes. I mean, I'm a child of the Civil Rights Movement. I think that we celebrated the 50th year of the Orangeburg Massacre, and that's a perfect example. People not understanding that story, not being told. One of the things that we're not going to allow to happen, our generation is not going to allow to happen, is that happened to the Charleston Massacre. We are going to always tell that story. And one of the things we haven't addressed is, you know, while we're in the climate of a Muslim ban and we're in the climate of border separation policies, you know, what could make a 21-year-old white male from Lexington County have as much hate in his heart as George Wallace? You know, no one's actually answered that question. And so we have to begin to have share our stories. I need to be able to sit down and be in Traveler's Rest and listen to a Donald Trump supporter, and that supporter should also be willing to sit down and listen to my story, and maybe we can find some commonalities on a very simple basis of humanity.
All right, I'm getting the wrap sign. I'm out of time this morning.
I'm sorry.
I hate that because we could talk about this for a long time, but thank you all for being here this morning. If you want to learn more about the Charleston Forum or see that report and some of those solutions presented, head to thecharlestonforum.com. They're also on Facebook. We'll be right back.
Save now during Tropicare's 4th of July sale. Come see Tropicare's huge selection of patio, porch, and pool furniture. All the latest styles, all the finest brands. Garden accessories and umbrellas too. At the best prices anywhere. Savings throughout the store now through July 7th at Tropicare. Outdoor living begins at Tropicare, Charleston Highway in West Columbia. Tropicare, darling.
I'm Pat McWhirter with McWhirter, Bellinger & Associates. If you're injured by a drunk driver, you may also have a claim against the bar that sold the driver the alcoholic beverages. The case is called a dram shot case. We just settled a dram shot case for $1 million. If you've been injured by a drunk driver, call us at 803 Law Firm. That's 803 Law Firm. McWhirter, Bellinger & Associates. It won't cost you anything to see if we can help.
Whatever it is that makes your business great, promote it with Vistaprint. 500 standard business cards start at just $9.99 when you enter code TVPromo at Vistaprint.com.
Our kids love hosting fireworks celebrations. Casey's Fireworks on Rosewood always makes our events magical. We trust the pros at Casey's to customize fireworks assortments that fit our budget and our taste. Find them online at Casey'sFireworks.com or on Facebook. Beat the rush and get the best selection. Visit Casey's today.
See the weather coming your way with WIS Skyview. Live weather cameras where you live, on TV, the web, your phone, and on your tablet. WIS Skyview. Sponsored by Great Southern Homes. Live green. Live smart.
All right, thanks for joining us this morning on WIS Awareness. Thanks to Bakari Sellers, Alana Simmons, and Sue Berkowitz. You can find more, again, about the Charleston Forum on their website, thecharlestonforum.com, or visit them on Facebook to check out that forum that happened recently or that disparities report. Have a great rest of your morning.